Animals like you don't belong here. Logan Whitaker's black belt snapped as he stepped in, chest puffed, crowding Imani Brooks on the mat. This gym's for real fighters, not handouts, hoping no one notices. He shoulder-checked her hard. His heel ground into the mat like he owned it. Laughter echoed from the other guys. Sharp, mean, approving. "Let's spar," Logan said, smirking. "I'll remind everyone where you belong." Imani didn't move. Barefoot, hands taped, eyes steady. She stayed quiet, not because she was afraid, but because she'd been trained to end violence before it needed applause. Logan never noticed the way the head coach froze mid-step, because the girl he was about to toy with was the only person there authorized to end his career with one call. Before continuing, comment where in the world you are watching from, and make sure to subscribe, because tomorrow's story is one you can't miss. The morning sun filtered through Iron Forge Martial Arts front windows, casting long shadows across the pristine mats. Imani Brooks paused at the entrance, her worn duffel bag hanging from one shoulder. Inside, students in crisp white uniforms clustered together, their laughter bouncing off the mirrored walls. Taking a deep breath, she pushed open the glass door. The bell chimed softly. A few heads turned, conversations dimming for a moment, before resuming with renewed energy. Imani approached the front desk, where Derek Whitaker sat shuffling papers, his polo shirt stretched tight across his chest. "Can I help you?" he asked without looking up. "I'd like to register for classes," Imani said quietly. Derek glanced up, his eyes scanning her quickly. "Have you trained before?" "Yes." Imani kept her answer simple. "Where?" He pulled out a stack of forms. "Master Kim's," before it closed. Derek's pen paused. "Never heard of it." "Well, we do things differently here at Iron Forge. More structured." He slid the papers toward her. "Fill these out. You'll need a uniform. We sell them here. No outside gear allowed." As Imani filled out the forms, she noticed a tall teenager in a black belt demonstrating kicks to a group of younger students. His movements were flashy, drawing appreciative murmurs from his audience. "That's my son Logan," Derek said proudly, following her gaze. "He's our youngest black belt. Started training here when he was 6. He raised his voice. "Logan! Come meet our newest student." Logan turned, his confident smile never wavering as he jogged over. Up close, his belt was pristinely tied, the embroidered stripes gleaming. "Welcome to Iron Forge," he said, looking down at Imani. "Always good to see new faces trying martial arts." "She's trained before," Derek added. "At some place called Master Kim's." Logan's eyebrows rose. "Never heard of it. Must be one of those strip mall dojos." He chuckled. "Don't worry. We'll fix any bad habits you picked up there." Imani said nothing, remembering her grandfather's words from countless dawn training sessions. "Let them talk. Words show you who they are." After changing into her new uniform, Imani joined the other students on the mat. Logan was leading warm-ups, calling out commands with practiced authority. As they moved through stretches, his gaze kept finding her. "New girl," he called out suddenly. "Your stance is all wrong. Here, let me show you." Before Imani could respond, Logan was behind her, grabbing her shoulders. "You're too tense. Relax." His grip tightened slightly. "Unless you're scared?" Scattered laughter rippled through the class. Imani kept her expression neutral, even as Logan adjusted her position with unnecessary force. Her grandfather's voice echoed in her mind. "Observe first, react last. Let them show their hand before you show yours." "There!" Logan stepped back, smirking. "Much better. Though you might want to work on your confidence. Can't learn if you're afraid to speak up." More laughter. Derek watched from his office, nodding approvingly at his son's leadership. The class continued, moving through basic techniques. Imani executed each move precisely, without flourish. She noticed Logan watching her, his expression shifting from amusement to something else, perhaps irritation at her calm focus. During partner drills, Logan made a point of circling near her group. "Remember," he announced loudly, "martial arts isn't just about technique. It's about spirit. Some people have it naturally. He threw a spinning kick that drew admiring gasps. Others need extra help. The message was clear in his tone. Several students glanced at Imani, then quickly looked away. "Good first class," Derek called out as they finished. "Logan, maybe you can give our new student some special attention next time. Show her how we do things here at Iron Forge." Logan's smile widened. "Happy to help. Always good to start with the basics. Really basic basics." Imani bowed out with the rest of the class, feeling Logan's eyes on her back. The other students gave her a wide berth as they headed to the changing rooms, already falling into whispered conversations. In the locker room, she carefully folded her new uniform. Her grandfather had warned her about places like this, where respect was a weapon and hierarchy was everything. "Watch how they treat those they think are beneath them," he'd said. "That's when masks slip." As Imani shouldered her bag, laughter echoed from the main room. Logan's voice carried clearly. "Did you see how scared she looked? Some people just aren't cut out for real training." More laughter. Derek's voice. "Now, son, be nice. Everyone has to start somewhere." "Sure, Dad. I'll be real nice." Show her exactly what she needs to learn. Imani walked out, her steps silent on the padded floor. The morning sun had shifted, throwing different shadows now. She felt Logan's gaze follow her to the door, heavy with assumed authority and dismissive amusement. He'd already decided what she was, another prop in his carefully constructed kingdom. Her grandfather would be waiting at home, ready to hear about her first day. She could already picture his knowing expression when she described the class. He'd seen it all before, had taught her precisely for moments like this. "Remember," he always said, "true power doesn't need to boast. Let them underestimate you. Let them think silence means weakness. Just watch, learn, and wait." Late afternoon sun streamed through Iron Forge's high windows, casting golden rectangles across the training mats. Students trickled in for open mat, their voices echoing off the mirrored walls. The formal structure of morning classes gave way to casual energy as teens grouped together, stretching and chatting. Logan Whitaker held court near the main mat, his black belt perfectly centered over his crisp uniform. A cluster of students hung on his every word as he gestured dramatically, describing his latest tournament victory. "So this guy from River Valley thought he had me," Logan said, demonstrating a block with practiced flair. 6 feet tall, built like a truck. But you know what? Size doesn't matter when you've got real skill. Appreciative nods followed. A younger student raised his hand. "Did you use that spinning hook kick?" "Better." Logan grinned. "I let him think he had control." "That's advanced strategy, playing with your opponent's mind." His eyes drifted across the room, landing on Imani. She sat alone in the corner, methodically stretching her shoulders. Logan's grin widened. "Speaking of strategy," he said loudly, "hey, new girl, you've been pretty quiet all day." The room's atmosphere shifted. Conversations died down as heads turned toward Imani. She continued her stretch, movements unhurried. "You know," Logan continued, walking closer, "open mat is the perfect time to get some real experience. How about we spar?" He spread his hands. "Just for fun, of course. I'll go easy on you." Snickers rippled through the watching students. Near the office, Paul Hendricks looked up from his clipboard, frowning slightly. "Logan," the instructor called out, "remember she's new? It's just friendly practice, mister." "Hendricks," Logan interrupted smoothly. "How else will she learn? Unless—" He turned back to Imani. "Unless you're not ready for actual sparring?" Imani finally looked up, her face calm. She studied Logan's stance, noting his weight distribution, the subtle swagger in his shoulders. Her eyes tracked the exits, the gathering crowd, the phones already appearing in eager hands. Her grandfather's voice echoed in her memory. "Never fight for pride, but never back down from necessity." "Okay," she said quietly, standing up. Logan blinked, clearly expecting more resistance. He recovered quickly. Great. See, Mr. Hendricks? She wants to learn. Paul Hendricks sighed. Gear up properly. 2-minute round. Light contact only. Of course, Logan said, winking at his friends. Super light. Educational. As Imani pulled on her headgear, she heard whispers behind her. $10, says she cries. Nah, 20, says she quits before the bell. Logan bounced on his toes in the center of the mat, playing to his audience. Ready when you are, new girl. Don't worry. I'll show you how we do things here. Imani stepped onto the mat, remembering countless dawn sessions with her grandfather. No spectators, no mirrors, no polished floors. Just concrete, and truth and lessons learned the hard way. Ready? Paul raised his hand. Begin! Logan opened with flashy footwork, circling left, then right. His first few strikes were deliberately sloppy. Light taps to her headgear, small kicks that barely touched her legs. Come on, he taunted. You can at least try to block. He flicked another strike past her guard. Or is this too advanced? Imani moved backward, absorbing each strike, cataloging his patterns. Logan followed, growing bolder with each step. Maybe we should start with basics, he said loudly. Like, how to make a fist? More laughter from the crowd. Imani kept moving, measuring distance, noting how he telegraphed his spinning kicks, how his guard dropped after combinations. Her grandfather's lessons surfaced with each exchange. Watch their breath, he'd taught her. Everyone has rhythm. Find it before you break it. Logan's attacks came faster now, his showmanship shifting to frustration at her continued silence. You can't just run away, he snapped, launching another spinning kick. This is martial arts, not hide and seek. Imani saw the tension in his jaw, the slight labor in his breathing, pride making him sloppy, arrogance leaving gaps. Timing, her grandfather always said, is knowing when to wait and when to move. The bell rang sharp and clear through the gym, and Imani, for the first time that day, stepped forward. The gym's fluorescent lights cast harsh shadows across the mat as Logan and Imani circled each other. Sweat darkened patches of Logan's uniform, his earlier showboating taking its toll. Students pressed closer, forming an eager ring around the action, their phones held high to capture whatever came next. Is this all you've got? Logan's voice carried a new edge. Just backing up and playing defense? He punctuated his words with quick jabs that Imani deflected, her movements economical and precise. Paul Hendricks watched from the edge, arms crossed. His expression shifted from mild concern to growing curiosity as he studied Imani's footwork. Logan pressed forward, each strike becoming less theatrical and more forceful. Come on! He feinted left, then launched into a spinning kick aimed at her midsection. At least try to fight back. The kick never landed. In the space between heartbeats, Imani moved. Her pivot was so clean it looked rehearsed. Her timing so precise it seemed inevitable. Logan's momentum carried him past her like a bull charging a matador. Before his brain could process the miss, Imani's sweep took his legs out from under him. The impact of Logan's body hitting the mat echoed through the suddenly silent gym. A few gasps rippled through the crowd. Someone's phone clattered to the floor. But Imani wasn't finished. As Logan tried to roll away, she transitioned smoothly into a joint lock. Her grip found pressure points that most recreational martial artists never learned existed. The hold was textbook perfect, the kind of technique that spoke of thousands of repetitions, of muscle memory burned into bone through years of dawn practice. Logan's eyes widened as he felt the inexorable pressure. This wasn't the flashy competition holds he was used to, where opponents played for points and referees stepped in early. This was something older, something that carried the weight of actual combat in its execution. Tap! Logan's voice cracked. When the pressure didn't immediately release, he slapped the mat harder. I said, tap! Paul Hendricks burst into motion, rushing forward. Break! Break, now! Imani released the hold instantly, rolling backward to her feet in one fluid motion. She stepped away and bowed formally. face composed, as if this were any other training exercise. The silence in the gym grew heavier. Students who had been recording lowered their phones slowly, as if unsure what they'd just witnessed. The usual post-sparring chatter was conspicuously absent. Logan scrambled up, his usual grace abandoned. Red splotches colored his neck and face as he tugged his uniform straight. That was... He swallowed hard. The mat's slippery. Someone must have tracked water in. A younger student near the front whispered, "But he didn't slip, he—" "Quiet!" Logan snapped, making the boy flinch. Paul Hendricks cleared his throat. "That's enough for today. Good control, both of you." His attempted neutrality fell flat as his eyes kept darting between Logan's disheveled state and Imani's calm demeanor. Logan's friends shifted uncomfortably, none meeting his eyes directly. The unspoken hierarchy of the gym had just been upended, and no one quite knew how to react. "Whatever." Logan forced a laugh that sounded more like a cough. "Nice move. Got lucky with the timing." He ran a hand through his sweat-dampened hair, trying to project casualness. "We should do this again sometime. You know, when the mat's not so—" Imani didn't acknowledge the excuses. She bowed once more to the instructor, then turned and walked off the mat, her footsteps silent on the padded surface. Her expression remained neutral, but there was a weight to her silence that felt more eloquent than any victory speech. Logan's forced smile couldn't hide the dangerous glint in his eyes as he watched her go. His hands clenched and unclenched at his sides, knuckles white with suppressed emotion. The gathered students began to disperse, their whispered conversations creating a low buzz of speculation. Some replayed their videos, analyzing the takedown frame by frame. Others huddled in small groups, reconsidering everything they thought they knew about the quiet new girl. Paul Hendricks stood rooted to his spot, a troubled look crossing his features. He'd seen enough matches to know the difference between luck and skill, between a flashy performance and efficient combat application. What he'd just witnessed belonged firmly in the latter category. Logan's father emerged from the office, drawn by the unusual quiet. "Everything all right out here?" "Fine," Logan said quickly, too quickly. "Just showing the new students some basics." His voice carried a tremor that belied his casual words. The assistant owner's gaze swept the scene, noting his son's disheveled appearance and the lingering tension in the air. His expression hardened as he watched Imani collecting her water bottle from the corner. Near the lockers, two senior students whispered behind their hands. "Did you see how fast?" "Shh. Logan's looking this way." The gym's usual afternoon energy had transformed into something uncertain and electric. Equipment lay forgotten on the edges of the mat. The wall clock ticked loudly in the strained atmosphere. The fluorescent lights in the locker room hallway buzzed with an electric hum that made Imani's skin prickle. She changed quickly, methodically folding her uniform and tucking it into her duffel bag. The rest of the students had cleared out, leaving behind the sharp scent of sweat and deodorant. Her muscles felt loose, warm from the workout, but her instincts had sharpened to razor focus. The hallway's shadows shifted, and footsteps approached. Multiple sets, deliberately unhurried. Logan appeared at the corridor's end, flanked by Tyler Knox and Evan Reed. His gym uniform was still rumpled from their sparring match, but he'd fixed his hair, regaining some of his usual polish. Tyler wore a smirk that matched Logan's stance, while Evan hung slightly back, his eyes darting between Logan and the floor. "Hey there, superstar!" Logan's voice had shed its public performance tone. It was lower now, colder. He positioned himself to block the exit, shoulders squared. "We need to talk about what happened out there." Imani adjusted her bag strap, scanning the space automatically. 3 teenage boys. 1 exit. Concrete walls. The supply closet door stood ajar to her left. A security camera blinked lazily in the corner, its red light steady. "That little stunt you pulled?" Logan continued, taking a step closer. "That's not how things work here." Tyler snickered, crossing his arms. "Yeah, someone needs to learn the rules. See? You're new." Logan's words dripped with false patience. so maybe you don't understand yet. But there's a certain order to things at Ironforge, a respect for tradition. His pause carried weight. For people who've earned their place. Imani remained still, her breathing controlled. Her grandfather's voice echoed in her memory. Stillness isn't weakness. It's the moment before the strike. And you? Logan's eyes narrowed. You forgot your place. Tried to make me look bad in front of everyone. Like some kind of show-off, Tyler added, eager to pile on. Evan shifted uncomfortably, looking down the hallway. Logan, maybe we should... Shut up, Evan. Logan didn't even glance his way. He took another step toward Imani, close enough now that she could smell his mint gum. You might think you're special because you got lucky with one move. But trust me, this is my gym. My father's gym. And we protect our own here. The fluorescent light above flickered, casting strange shadows across Logan's face. His usual charm had evaporated, revealing something harder, uglier underneath. So here's what's going to happen, he continued, voice dropping even lower. You're going to know your role. Stay quiet. Train in the back. And if anyone asks about today, you tell them I was being nice, helping the new girl feel welcome. His lips curved in a smile that never reached his eyes. Because, if you try to show me up again... Footsteps echoed from the office area, accompanied by Derek Whitaker's voice discussing class schedules with someone. Logan paused, jaw tightening at the interruption. Imani used the moment to step forward, her movement smooth and unhurried. She didn't drop her gaze from Logan's, didn't flinch or rush. Her grandfather had taught her that predators chase what runs. Logan's hand shot out, not quite touching her, but hovering near her shoulder. We're not done here. Logan. Evan's whisper carried an edge of warning as the footsteps grew closer. With visible frustration, Logan lowered his hand and shifted aside, just enough to let Imani pass. But as she drew even with him, he leaned in close, his words meant for her ears alone. This gym protects its own, he repeated softly. Remember that before you try anything else, stupid. Imani walked past them, her steps measured and calm. She felt their stares on her back all the way to the exit, heard Tyler's muffled laugh and Evan's quiet protest. The evening air hit her face like a wake-up call as she stepped outside. The parking lot was nearly empty, orange sunset painting long shadows across the asphalt. She took her time walking home, letting the tension drain from her shoulders with each block. Her grandfather was waiting on the porch when she arrived, his weathered hands wrapped around a steaming mug of tea. One look at her face, and he knew. He always knew. Come sit, Samuel Brooks said, gesturing to the empty chair beside him. His voice carried the quiet authority of someone who'd seen too much to waste words. Imani settled next to him, laying out the day's events in precise detail. The sparring match, the technique she'd used, Logan's performance beforehand, and his true face after. The threats in the hallway, coded but clear. Samuel listened without interruption, but his jaw tightened as she spoke. The grip on his mug grew white-knuckled at certain parts. When she finished, silence stretched between them, broken only by distant traffic and cicada songs. You controlled the situation, he finally said, nodding slowly. Kept your head. Used what I taught you, both in technique and temperament. Yes, grandfather. Good. He set his mug down carefully. Now you'll need to keep training. Harder than before. And keep detailed notes. Dates, times, exactly what was said and done. Document everything. Imani nodded, understanding the wisdom behind his words. That night, in her bedroom, she pulled out a small notebook from her desk drawer. The pages were crisp, waiting. She wrote the date at the top, then Logan's name, followed by a precise account of the day's events. Her handwriting was neat, unhurried, each detail captured with the same calm focus she'd shown on the mat. The morning sun hadn't fully cleared the horizon when Imani approached Ironforge Martial Arts. Her breath formed small clouds in the cool air as she reached for the door handle. Inside, The fluorescent lights hummed against the pre-dawn darkness, and the mat already held several figures warming up. Logan stood at the center, his black belt precisely knotted, demonstrating a technique to two junior students. His laugh carried across the empty space, too loud for the early hour. When the door clicked shut behind Imani, his eyes flicked toward her, and his smile widened. Bright, practiced, wrong. "Morning!" His voice boomed with exaggerated cheer. "Eager to learn more, huh?" Imani nodded once, moving to her usual corner to begin stretching. The other students watched her with poorly concealed interest, yesterday's shock still fresh in their whispered conversations. As more people filtered in, instructor Paul Hendricks called them to line up. "Partner drills today," he announced, scanning the room. "I'll assign pairs." Imani found herself matched with Marcus, a heavyweight brown belt who typically trained with the adult class. He towered over her, thick arms crossed over his chest. "Light contact only," Hendricks reminded everyone, but his eyes didn't quite meet Imani's. Marcus didn't hold back. His blocks came down like hammers, each strike barely controlled. Imani adapted, redirecting force rather than meeting it directly, just as her grandfather had taught her. But every time she successfully evaded, Logan's voice cut through the gym. "Watch that footwork," he called out, stalking closer. "That's not proper form. You're going to hurt someone moving like that." From the office window, Derek Whitaker observed, his expression unreadable as he made notes on a clipboard. When Imani executed a clean takedown, textbook perfect, well within regulations, Logan immediately raised his voice. "Dangerous!" he gestured dramatically. "That kind of reckless technique is exactly what we don't want here. Right, Dad?" Derek emerged from his office, nodding gravely. "Safety first. Always." Hendricks frowned slightly, but said nothing, turning instead to correct a white belt stance across the room. Around Imani, whispers grew like weeds through concrete. "Did you see how aggressive she is? No respect for tradition. Someone should teach her." By afternoon, a new notice appeared on the bulletin board, printed in bold letters. "Attention all students, updated conduct guidelines. Strict adherence to traditional forms. No unauthorized techniques. Immediate correction of dangerous behavior. Respect for senior belt authority. Violations will result in suspension. Derek Whitaker's signature." Mark the bottom, the ink still fresh. During the evening class, Imani noticed every minor correction was aimed at her. A slight angle in her knee, the position of her elbow, the timing of her bow. Things that went unremarked in other students drew immediate criticism. "Hey, look!" Tyler Knox sneered during water break, loud enough to carry. "She's even drinking water wrong." Laughter rippled through Logan's usual group. They clustered near her deliberately, voices pitched to reach her ears. "What's with that hair, anyway? Probably can't afford proper gym clothes. Should stick to her own kind of place." Imani kept her face neutral, but her hands tightened around her water bottle. She thought of her grandfather's hands, the way scars mapped his knuckles like pale rivers, the stories behind each mark that he shared only in pieces, late at night when sleep wouldn't come. That evening, she found Samuel in their small backyard, tending to his vegetable garden. The setting sun painted his gray hair gold as he worked the soil with careful precision. "Grandfather," she said softly, "why did you never join a formal dojo?" Samuel sat back on his heels, studying a tomato plant before answering. "Power needs checks," he finally said. "Balance, like these plants." He gestured to the garden. "Too much water drowns them. Too little withers them. But the right amount, applied with discipline." He smiled slightly. "That creates growth." He stood slowly, brushing dirt from his hands. Belt systems. They can be good. Structure, goals, community. But sometimes they become about power itself. About who has it, who wants it, who's afraid to lose it. His eyes grew distant. "I've seen what happens when authority goes unchecked. In war, in peace, people start believing the belt makes them right. instead of their actions. Imani thought of Logan's smirk, of Hendricks' averted gaze, of Derek Whitaker's convenient new rules. The system protects itself, Samuel continued, leading her inside to the small room they'd converted for training. That's why I taught you differently. No belts, no ranks, just truth in movement, reality in technique. He ran a hand along the bare walls. No certificates, no trophies, no colored belts in neat rows. Power without accountability rots from inside, like fruit left in the sun too long. Looks good on the outside, poison within. They trained until darkness fell completely, Samuel correcting her form with the same patience he'd shown for 10 years. Each movement had purpose. Each technique served survival, not spectacle. Later, in her room, Imani sat cross-legged on her bed. Her wrist tape lay before her, clean and white in the lamplight. She began wrapping her hands with the same careful attention she'd given every lesson, every drill, every quiet dawn practice. The tape made soft ripping sounds in the silence as she prepared for tomorrow, each strip measured and precise. The afternoon sun blazed through Ironforge's wall-length windows, casting long shadows across the mat. Sweat darkened the backs of uniforms as students rotated through sparring partners. Imani's GI was already soaked. She hadn't been allowed a single water break. "Switch!" Logan's voice cut through the rhythmic sounds of practice. His arms were crossed over his chest, a clipboard dangling from one hand. "Imani, you're with Jake." Jake, fresh off the sidelines, bounced on his toes as he squared up. His white belt was crisp, still holding its creases, but his stance betrayed wrestling experience. Imani's muscles burned from the previous 4 rounds, each one against a rested opponent. They bowed. Jake charged immediately, throwing his weight forward with more enthusiasm than control. Imani pivoted, using his momentum to slip past, but he recovered faster than expected. His elbow caught her ribs, hard. "Good intensity," Logan called out. "See how Jake commits to the technique?" Imani measured her breath, adjusting her distance. Jake pressed forward again, emboldened by the praise. This time, when he lunged, she caught his arm in a textbook counter, redirecting him safely to the mat. "Warning!" Logan's voice cracked like a whip. "That's excessive aggression. We don't allow that kind of response here." Jake scrambled up, confusion flickering across his face. "But I'm okay." "Switch!" Logan cut him off. Imani, center mat with Chris. Chris was another fresh opponent, his brown belt worn with obvious pride. He outweighed her by at least 40 pounds. The rotation continued relentlessly. Chris, then Sarah, then Marcus again. Each new partner brought renewed energy against Imani's mounting exhaustion. From his observation point, Instructor Hendricks frowned, checking his watch. Finally, he stepped forward. "Imani? A word?" She followed him to the edge of the mat, legs shaking slightly from fatigue. Hendricks lowered his voice, glancing toward where Logan stood with his clipboard. "Look," he began, running a hand through his graying hair. "You've got talent, that's clear. But this is an established gym with traditions." He shifted his weight uncomfortably. "Sometimes it's better to blend in, you know? Work within the system instead of against it." Imani met his gaze steadily, sweat rolling down her temple. She didn't respond. "Just think about it," Hendricks finished lamely. "You can take 5 minutes if you need it." She bowed slightly and returned to the rotation, refusing to show weakness by accepting the break. Logan's smile tightened. Later that evening, Samuel's ancient pickup truck rumbled into the recreation center's empty parking lot. The building's basement lights glowed dimly through ground-level windows. Inside, the concrete floor was padded with worn mats that smelled of decades of use. "Again," Samuel commanded, his voice echoing off cinder-block walls. 5 more rounds. Imani pushed through burpees, her arms trembling. Without rest, Samuel moved her into takedown drills, then submissions. Each time her form slipped, he made her start over. When she finally collapsed, chest heaving, he sat beside her on the mat. "You're fighting 2 battles," he said quietly. "The physical one. That's the easy part. Your body knows what to do. He helped her sit up, passing over a water bottle. It's the other fight that tests your spirit. The one against a system that closes ranks when threatened. They're trying to break me, Imani said between sips. Samuel nodded. Power protects itself. When you exposed a crack in their hierarchy, they didn't question the hierarchy. They questioned you. He stood, offering her a hand up. That's why we train differently. Skill isn't about winning tournaments or earning applause. It's about ending threats efficiently, whether those threats are physical or, he gestured vaguely, institutional. Imani wiped sweat from her forehead. Should I quit? Find another gym? Is that what you want to do? She thought about Logan's smirk, about Hendrix's weak advice, about Jake's confused face when natural consequences were twisted into aggression. No. Good. Samuel's voice hardened. Because that's exactly what bullies expect. They push until you break or run. When you do neither, he moved into a ready stance. That's when they have to face their own weakness. They trained for another hour. Pressure drills, escapes from bad positions, decision-making while exhausted. Samuel created scenarios that forced Imani to think through fog of fatigue. Each repetition built not just muscle memory, but mental resilience. When they finally finished, the recreation center parking lot was empty except for their truck. Stars pierced the clear night sky as Samuel drove them home, the radio humming softly between them. Imani's muscles ached, but her mind felt sharp, focused. The next morning, darkness still gripped the neighborhood as Imani sat on her bed, methodically lacing her training shoes. Her body was sore, but each twinge felt like a reminder rather than a complaint. The house was silent, except for the distant sound of Samuel tending his morning garden. She double-knotted each shoe with precise movements, neither rushing nor hesitating. The first hints of dawn were just beginning to lighten the eastern sky, but Imani was already prepared, already centered, already clear about the path ahead. The afternoon sun slanted through Iron Forge's windows, casting long shadows across the polished wooden floors. Students crowded the mat area, their animated chatter bouncing off the mirrored walls. Instructor Hendrix stood at the center, holding up a stack of bright yellow flyers. "All right, everyone quiet down," he called out, waiting for the noise to settle. "I've got an exciting announcement. The Regional Teen Championship is coming up in 3 weeks at Central Arena." The room exploded with excited whispers. Logan, standing front and center, straightened his black belt with practiced casualness. His usual group of followers clustered around him, already discussing his guaranteed victory. "This is a prestigious event," Hendrix continued, his voice carrying over the buzz. "Top competitors from 5 states, multiple divisions, great exposure for the gym." He started passing out registration forms. Sign-ups need to be in by Friday. Parent signatures required for everyone under 18. When the stack reached Imani, she took a form without hesitation. Logan's eyes narrowed as she began filling it out, his carefully casual pose stiffening slightly. "Well, look who's feeling adventurous," Logan drawled, loud enough for nearby students to hear. "That's really brave of you, considering your experience level." The last words dripped with mock concern. A few students shifted uncomfortably, remembering the sparring incident. Others who hadn't been there looked confused. How could a white belt challenge their champion? Hendrix approached Imani's corner, his expression troubled. "Imani, could I have a word?" She followed him to the edge of the mat. His voice dropped low. "Look, I appreciate your enthusiasm, but this is a serious competition. The skill level is very high, and with your current rank—" "Let her compete," called out Jake, the white belt she'd trained with earlier. "We've all seen what she can do." Other voices joined in, mostly from students who'd witnessed her takedown of Logan. The pressure built until Hendrix visibly wavered. "Fine," he said finally, "but you'll need to demonstrate proper control during preparation. Tournament rules are strict." Logan's laugh cut through the moment. "Don't worry, coach. I'll help her train." Make sure she understands the proper approach. The next few days transformed the gym. Practice matches increased in intensity. Students paired off for endless drills, perfecting competition legal techniques. Logan held court at the center of it all, performing flashy combinations for his admirers. During one rotation, he deliberately paired himself with Imani. "Remember," he announced loudly, clearly performing for the watching students, "control is everything in competition. We can't have any dangerous situations." His eyes locked onto hers meaningfully. They bowed in. Logan immediately launched a series of aggressive strikes, forcing her to defend. His technique was technically perfect, designed to impress. Each attack came with commentary. "See how I maintain safe distance?" Another strike. "Notice the controlled power?" A sweep attempt. This is what judges look for. Imani absorbed, redirected, waited. When she finally moved, it was with precise economy. No wasted motion, no flash. She caught his kick, used his momentum to unbalance him, and took him down with textbook form. Logan jumped up immediately. "That's exactly what I mean about dangerous responses," he said through clenched teeth. "You could really hurt someone like that." The whispers started that afternoon. Logan's friends spread stories about Imani's lack of control during practice. They talked about liability concerns just loud enough to be overheard. Some younger students began avoiding her during rotations. That evening, Imani found her grandfather in their small backyard, tending to his vegetable garden. His hands moved steadily through the soil, each motion deliberate, despite old scars crossing his knuckles. "Tournament politics already starting?" he asked without looking up. Imani sat on the garden wall. "How did you know?" Samuel straightened slowly, brushing dirt from his palms. "Because some things never change. People who worship belts and trophies hate anything that threatens their system." He settled beside her, his weathered face thoughtful. "You know I fought for 20 years after Vietnam. No rings, no referees, just concrete basements and warehouse floors. You never talk about those days," Imani said quietly, "because there's no glory in that kind of fighting. No medals, no applause." He flexed his scarred hands. But there was truth. When someone went down, it wasn't because of politics or points. It was because they were beaten, plain and simple. Standing, Samuel moved through a simple stance sequence. Despite his age, each position flowed perfectly into the next. Tournaments aren't just about skill. They're about who knows who, about whose daddy owns what, about whose style makes the school look good. Imani watched his movements, recognizing the fundamentals he'd drilled into her since childhood. "So why let me compete?" "Because sometimes," he said, completing the sequence, "the truth needs witnesses." The next morning, Imani stood at Hendrix's desk, registration form extended. The office was quiet compared to the practice noise outside. Her hand remained steady as he reviewed the paperwork, even as his frown deepened. Logan appeared in the doorway, his own form already approved. "Big step," he said with a smile that didn't reach his eyes. "Hope you're ready for real competition." Hendrix glanced between them before reluctantly adding Imani's form to the stack. The sound of the paper settling seemed unusually loud in the small office. Through the window, students continued their tournament preparation. Phones recorded fancy combinations. Friends cheered impressive aerial kicks. The afternoon sun cast everything in warm, competitive glory. Imani bowed slightly and turned to leave, feeling Logan's stare boring into her back. Her grandfather's words echoed in her mind. "Sometimes the truth needs witnesses." The sports complex loomed against the morning sky, its brick facade already crowded with arriving competitors and families. Inside, fluorescent lights hummed above the competition area where blue mats stretched across the gymnasium floor. The air smelled of disinfectant and nervous energy. Imani stood beside her grandfather in the registration line, her gym bag slung over one shoulder. Samuel's presence felt like a fortress behind her, solid, unwavering. She wore her plain white gi, freshly pressed, with no patches or decorations. "Remember," Samuel said quietly, "quick entries, clean exits, no showboating." "Yes, sir." Imani's voice was steady despite the flutter in her stomach. The main entrance doors burst open as Logan's entourage arrived. He strode in wearing Iron Forge's premium black GI, his father Derek close behind. A cluster of students and parents followed, carrying water bottles and energy bars. Logan's laugh echoed across the lobby. "Looking good, champ," someone called out. Logan raised his hand in acknowledgement, every inch the conquering hero. The preliminary brackets were posted on a large board. Competitors gathered around, checking positions and schedules. Imani found her name in the middle bracket. 3 matches minimum to reach semifinals. "Good morning, everyone," the head referee's voice boomed through the PA system. "First-round competitors to your designated areas. We start in 15 minutes. Imani's first opponent was a tall girl from a downtown dojo. They bowed in, circled briefly, then engaged. The girl attacked with textbook combinations: front kick, reverse punch, roundhouse. Imani slipped the strikes, waited for an opening, then moved. 1 clean entry, sweeping the girl's lead leg while controlling her upper body. They hit the mat together, Imani already securing position. The submission came quickly, applied with precise pressure. The referee called it. Total match time, 47 seconds. "Winner, Imani Brooks," the scorekeeper announced. A few scattered claps mixed with confused murmurs. On the adjacent mat, Logan was putting on a show. He launched spinning kicks and jumping techniques, each move calculated for maximum visual impact. His opponent, a nervous-looking boy in a blue belt, barely managed to defend. When Logan finally landed his signature tornado kick, the crowd erupted. "That's how it's done!" Derek Whitaker shouted, leading the applause. Between rounds, competitors milled around the warm-up area. Imani stayed close to Samuel, stretching quietly. Logan passed behind her, shoulder checking her hard enough to disrupt her balance. "Enjoy it while it lasts," he muttered, voice low and ugly. "You won't finish this tournament." Samuel stepped forward, but Imani touched his arm. "It's fine, Grandpa. Just words." The second round brought stronger opposition. Imani faced a stocky brown belt who tried to muscle through everything. The girl grabbed Imani's GI, attempting to force a throw. Imani didn't resist. She redirected the energy, used the girl's grip against her, and transformed the attack into a smooth counter. Another clean submission. Another quick victory. Phones appeared in the crowd now, recording her matches. Whispers spread about the mysterious white belt, who fought with unsettling efficiency. Some viewers recognized her from viral clips of the gym incident. Logan continued his campaign of dominance, each victory more theatrical than the last. He played to the cameras, pointed to his supporters after particularly flashy moves. The judges nodded approvingly. Derek Whitaker worked the crowd, shaking hands with officials between matches. During the quarter-final break, Samuel's eyes narrowed. He watched one of the senior judges lean close to Derek, their conversation hidden behind hands. Money didn't appear to change hands, but something passed between them. A nod, an understanding. "Stay focused," Samuel told Imani. "Control what you can control." The quarterfinals tested Imani's patience. Her opponent was skilled and aggressive, forcing her to work from disadvantaged positions. She remained calm, weathering the storm until opportunities presented themselves. When the opening came, she capitalized immediately. The finishing sequence was textbook. Trap the arm, apply pressure, maintain control. Her opponent tapped quickly, respect evident in their post-match bow. Logan's quarterfinal bout ended with a spectacular spinning heel kick that wasn't quite as spontaneous as it appeared. His opponent seemed to lean perfectly into the technique's path. The resulting knockout brought the crowd to their feet. "Did you see that?" Derek boasted to anyone within earshot. "That's real martial arts right there." 4 competitors remained. The semifinal brackets would be announced after lunch. Imani sat with Samuel in a quiet corner of the cafeteria, sipping water and analyzing previous matches. She'd escaped the early rounds without injury or exhaustion, exactly as planned. "You're doing well," Samuel said, his voice carrying decades of earned wisdom. "But remember what we discussed about tournaments. Politics matter more than performance," Imani recited softly. "Stay ready. Trust your training." The lunch break wound down. Competitors began drifting back toward the competition area. Imani stood, rolled her shoulders, and checked her GI one last time. The semifinal pairings would be posted soon. She bowed to her grandfather, then walked toward the locker room to freshen up before the next round. The hallway echoed with her footsteps, most spectators still finishing their meals. Hope flickered cautiously in her chest. Not hope for victory, necessarily, but hope that skill and discipline might speak louder than politics, just this once. In the quiet corridor, Imani couldn't hear the soft click of her locker being opened, couldn't see the shadows moving quickly behind its metal door. The fluorescent lights buzzed overhead as Imani approached her locker during the midday break. Her muscles felt loose, warmed from the morning's matches. The hallway smelled of metal and sweat, mostly empty while other competitors grabbed lunch. She spun the combination lock, the clicks echoing in the quiet space. Something felt off before she even opened the door. A subtle wrongness in the air. When the locker swung open, her heart dropped. Her carefully packed gym bag lay upended, contents scattered across the metal bottom, wraps unrolled like fallen streamers. Her water bottle had been emptied, leaving everything damp. But worst of all, her mouthguard was gone. The custom-fitted piece she'd saved 3 months of allowance to buy had vanished. Imani's hands remained steady as she examined the mess, though her pulse quickened. A movement caught her eye. Something scratched into the wooden bench beside her locker. 5 ugly letters carved deep into the grain. Her throat tightened as she read the slur. Ancient hate made fresh and personal. She took 3 careful breaths, just as Samuel had taught her. Then she documented everything with her phone. The overturned bag, the missing mouthguard, the vandalized bench. Each photo clear and time-stamped. The tournament director's office was down the hall, next to the gym entrance. Imani knocked firmly. "Come in," a voice called. Inside, 2 officials sat behind a folding table covered in brackets and scoring sheets. They looked up with mild annoyance at the interruption. "Yes?" the older one asked, already turning back to his paperwork. "I need to report vandalism and theft from my locker," Imani said, keeping her voice level. She held up her phone. "I have photos." "That's a serious accusation," the younger official frowned. "We'll need to investigate. Fill out this incident form, and we'll review it after the tournament concludes. The finals are in less than an hour," Imani pointed out. "I'm missing required safety equipment that was stolen." "You should have secured your belongings better," the older official said dismissively. "We can't delay matches for missing items." The door opened behind her. Logan stepped in, wearing a concerned expression that didn't reach his eyes. "Everything okay in here?" he asked smoothly. "Dad sent me to check on the bracket postings." "Perfect timing," the younger official smiled. "We're just about to put them up. Why don't you help us carry these out?" Imani stood very still as Logan gathered papers, brushing past her with exaggerated care. His cologne was expensive and too strong, marking his territory even here. "Good luck out there," he murmured, just loud enough for her to hear. His smile was razor-sharp. She followed them out to the main gym where a crowd had gathered around the bulletin board. The semifinal brackets went up to scattered cheers and groans. Imani scanned for her name, but before she could find it, a hand touched her shoulder. "Ms. Brooks?" A third official she hadn't seen before gestured to a quiet corner. "A moment, please?" Her stomach clenched. Samuel's warnings about tournament politics echoed in her mind. The official held a clipboard, his expression professionally neutral. "We've received a serious conduct violation complaint about your behavior today." "What complaint?" Imani asked. "I'm not at liberty to discuss the specifics or the source," he said, "but the allegations are concerning enough that we have to take action." Across the gym, she spotted Derek Whitaker watching, arms crossed. Instructor Hendricks stood nearby, suddenly fascinated by his phone screen. "What allegations?" Imani pressed. "I haven't violated any rules. That's not for you to decide," the official said firmly. "The tournament committee has reviewed the complaint and found it credible. I'm afraid you're disqualified from further competition today." The words hit like a physical blow. Based on an anonymous complaint? Without any evidence or chance to defend myself? "The committee's decision is final." His tone suggested further discussion would only make things worse. A burst of applause drew her attention. Logan stood in the center of the mat, hand raised in victory. The announcement echoed through the speakers. Due to disqualification, Logan Whitaker advances to the finals by default. The crowd's cheers felt like salt in an open wound. Imani watched Logan soak in the adoration, his father beaming proudly nearby. Instructor Hendricks finally looked up, met her eyes for a fraction of a second, then quickly looked away again. The humiliation burned in her chest, hot enough to scorch away words. She turned and walked off the competition floor, back straight, eyes forward. Her feet carried her through the lobby and out into the parking lot, where the autumn air felt shocking against her flushed skin. Samuel waited by his truck, reading her expression instantly. Without a word, he took off his worn leather jacket and draped it over her shoulders. The familiar smell of leather and aftershave wrapped around her like armor. "They were never going to let you win," he said quietly. "Not here. Not playing by their rules." Imani nodded, throat too tight for speech. Through the glass doors, she could see Logan with his arms raised triumphantly, surrounded by admirers. His victory would be recorded, celebrated, shared on social media. Her disqualification would become a whispered warning to others who didn't know their place. The jacket felt heavy on her shoulders as she watched Logan bask in unearned glory. All her training in restraint, all her grandfather's lessons about discipline and patience, suddenly felt insufficient against the weight of systemic injustice. The quick thrill of that first sparring victory seemed very far away now. The kitchen clock ticked steadily in the Brooks home, each sound marking time like a metronome. Steam rose from 2 untouched mugs of tea on the worn wooden table. Imani sat with her hands folded, replaying the day's events while Samuel listened, his weathered face giving nothing away. "They had it planned," she said, her voice steady despite the anger simmering beneath. "The locker, the complaint, all of it. Logan knew before I did." You could see it in his smile. Samuel's fingers traced an old scar on his knuckle. A habit Imani had noticed only emerged when he was deep in thought. The kitchen's yellow light cast shadows across his face, making him look older than his 68 years. "Tell me exactly what happened with the officials," he said quietly. Imani described each dismissive response, each avoided glance, the carefully constructed wall of bureaucracy that had risen between her and justice. As she spoke, her grandfather's expression grew more focused, like he was seeing something beyond the immediate situation. "They left no evidence," she concluded. "Nothing I could prove, just like Logan planned." Samuel stood slowly, joints creaking as he walked to an old cabinet in the corner. He pulled out a small wooden box she'd never seen before, its surface smooth from years of handling. When he returned to the table, his movements were deliberate, almost ceremonial. "There's something I never taught you," he said, opening the box. Inside lay yellowed newspaper clippings, old photographs, and what looked like fight cards from underground matches. "Something I hoped you'd never need to know." Imani leaned forward as he spread out the items. The photos showed a younger Samuel in various fighting stances, but not in any traditional dojo. The venues looked like warehouses, basements, places where official rules held no power. "When systems fail," Samuel continued, his voice taking on a teacher's rhythm, "when private injustice hides behind public policies, there's another way, a harder way." He tapped one photo showing him squared off against a much larger opponent. "You have to make them face you where their power doesn't reach, where audience matters more than authority." Imani's phone buzzed. A video link appeared in her messages. Someone had uploaded her sparring match with Logan from that first day. His desperate tap-out played in crisp detail. The comments were already multiplying, questioning the tournament's outcome. 300 shares already, she murmured, showing Samuel the screen. Another notification popped up, a different kind of video. Logan, clearly celebrating at someone's house, announcing an upcoming event at Iron Forge. His words slurred slightly as he proclaimed an invite-only sparring night to prove who really deserved respect. No refs, no points, Logan's recorded voice declared. Just real fighting, unless some people are too scared to show up. The camera panned across his laughing friends before cutting off. Imani looked up at her grandfather. His expression had shifted from contemplative to grimly determined. He gave a single, sharp nod. "Get your gear," he said, standing. "We start now." The basement lights flickered on, illuminating their private training space. No mirrors, no decorations, just mats and essential equipment. Samuel moved with renewed purpose, setting up familiar drills in unfamiliar combinations. "No more holding back," he instructed, as Imani wrapped her hands. "No more hiding what you can really do. Show me everything." They trained for hours. Each movement was analyzed, refined, stripped of any unnecessary flourish. Samuel corrected angles she hadn't known needed adjustment, taught her to read subtle weight shifts that telegraphed intent. When she threw combinations, he demanded they be faster, tighter, more efficient. "Again," he'd say after each sequence, "faster, cleaner. Make every second count." Sweat soaked through Imani's shirt as midnight approached. Her muscles trembled with fatigue, but her mind felt sharper than ever. She understood now. This wasn't about winning a match or earning a belt. This was about confronting corruption in its own arena. During a water break, she checked her phone again. The sparring video had tripled in views. Comments questioned Logan's tournament record, his father's influence, the convenient timing of her disqualification. The truth was spreading like wildfire, beyond anyone's ability to control. Samuel watched her scroll through the responses. "They create systems to protect themselves," he said. "But systems can't protect them from their own actions being exposed." Imani nodded, opening her small notebook. Under Logan's name, written days ago when this all began, she added a single word: tomorrow. "One more drill," Samuel said, moving back to the center of the mat. "Then we plan." Imani stood, muscles aching but mind clear. The basement's harsh lighting cast their shadows large against the wall. Teacher and student, grandfather and granddaughter, preparing for a confrontation that had become inevitable. The clock upstairs struck midnight as they resumed their positions. Each tick echoed the truth they both knew. Tomorrow would change everything. Not through official channels or sanctioned matches, but in the raw arena Logan himself had created. Samuel's voice cut through her thoughts. "Show me the combination again. Full speed, this time." Imani settled into her stance, all hesitation gone. The time for holding back was over. Iron Forge martial arts pulsed with raw energy after hours, the overhead lights casting harsh shadows across the packed crowd. Music thumped through portable speakers, drowning out the whispered bets and excited chatter. The air felt electric, charged with the knowledge that what was about to happen wasn't sanctioned by any official body. Logan Whitaker commanded attention at the center of the mat, his black belt tied with theatrical precision. A group of admirers clustered around him as he gestured dramatically, recreating his tournament victory. "She just couldn't handle the pressure," he proclaimed, loud enough to carry. "Some people aren't cut out for real competition, you know?" Laughter rippled through his audience. Derek Whitaker lingered near his office doorway, maintaining the paper-thin fiction that he wasn't supervising this unauthorized gathering. His presence sent a clear message. Consequences would be selective tonight. Phones recorded everything, their small screens glowing like fireflies in the dimmer corners of the gym. Tyler Knox collected cash from eager spectators, marking down odds in his phone. The temperature seemed to rise with each new arrival. sweat already beading on foreheads despite no one having thrown a single punch. When the front door opened, the entire room shifted. Conversations cut off mid-word as Imani Brooks entered, her grandfather, Samuel Brooks's tall frame, following close behind. She carried a small gym bag, her expression neutral as she surveyed the scene. Samuel positioned himself against the far wall, his military bearing obvious even in civilian clothes. Logan's laugh pierced the sudden quiet. "Well, look who actually showed up." He spread his arms wide, playing to his audience. "Come to try your luck again? Or maybe explain that tournament attitude problem?" Imani said nothing, simply setting her bag down and beginning to stretch. This seemed to irritate Logan more than any response could have. "Hey, I'm giving you a chance here," he continued, voice sharpening. "A chance to redeem yourself. Show everyone what you claim you can do." He glanced at his friends, encouraging their snickers. "Unless you're scared without officials to protect you?" The crowd pressed closer to the mat, forming an uneven circle. Someone, Tyler probably, clicked the door locks into place. The sound echoed with finality. Derek Whitaker shifted in his doorway, but said nothing. His silence was permission. Samuel Brooks remained motionless against the wall, but his eyes missed nothing. He watched Derek's positioning, noted which students blocked the exits, tracked every phone aimed at the mat. His expression revealed nothing, but his attention was absolute. "No headgear," Logan announced, stripping off his shirt to reveal carefully maintained muscle. "No rounds, no points. Submit or get knocked out. That's it." He grinned at Imani. "Unless that's too rough for you." Imani stood, unzipping her hoodie with deliberate calm. Beneath it, she wore a plain black rash guard, her wrists and hands professionally taped. The methodical precision of her preparation seemed to give even Logan pause. "I accept those terms," she said quietly, her first words since entering. The clarity of her voice somehow cut through the music and murmurs. More phones emerged from pockets, their camera apps opening like hungry eyes. The music's bass line throbbed through the floor as Logan began bouncing on his toes, throwing performative shadow punches for his audience. "Last chance to back out," he taunted, rolling his shoulders. "No shame in admitting you're outclassed." "Well, maybe a little shame." His followers laughed on cue. Imani stepped onto the mat, her movement economical and focused. Gone was any trace of the hesitation she'd shown in previous classes. Her stillness radiated something that made the closest spectators take small steps backward. Logan's grin faltered slightly as she met his gaze. He covered it quickly, playing to the crowd again. "Hey, somebody make sure to get this on video. It's gonna be a short show, but a good one." The circle of phones tightened, their lights creating an electronic halo around the mat. Derek Whitaker crossed his arms, committed now to his role as passive observer. Samuel Brooks remained statue still, only his eyes moving as he tracked every detail. Imani settled into her stance, not the showy position Logan had mocked in her first class, but something older, more grounded. The difference was subtle, but significant, like a tiger relaxing before it springs. "Ready to learn your place?" Logan called out, starting his trademark showboating circuit of the mat. "Don't worry, I'll try to leave you conscious enough to remember the lesson." The music seemed to fade into the background as tension built. Someone started a ragged countdown, voices joining in. 5! Logan bounced higher, playing to his audience. 4! Phones shifted for better angles. 3! Derek Whitaker's jaw clenched. 2! Samuel Brooks's expression hardened. 1! Logan stepped onto the mat, with the same cocky grin he'd worn since day one. Imani bowed once, a gesture of pure formality. When she straightened, her eyes held none of the uncertainty he'd tried to instill over the past weeks. They were cold, focused, and absolutely clear about what was about to happen. The fight exploded without ceremony. No bell rang, no referee stepped forward, just Logan launching himself across the mat with lethal intent. His first combination came fast and vicious, abandoning any pretense of friendly sparring. Right cross, left hook, knee strike. each blow designed to hurt, to break, to dominate. Several shots connected solidly with Imani's ribs and shoulders. The crowd roared approval as Logan pressed forward, his technique precise despite the aggression. Each impact echoed through the gym, punctuated by his supporters' cheers. "Not so tough now, are you?" Logan spat between combinations. Sweat already gleamed on his shoulders as he stalked forward. "This isn't your grandfather's basement." Imani absorbed the assault without retreating directly back. Each step was measured, angled, maintaining distance without surrendering ground. Her breathing remained steady even as Logan's strikes found their marks. She moved like water around stone, flowing, redirecting, always in motion. Logan's confidence grew with each landed blow. He started showboating between attacks, playing to his audience. "Come on! Fight back!" His next combination ended with a spinning kick that whistled past Imani's head. "Or maybe you only know how to run?" The crowd pressed closer, phones recording every moment. Derek Whitaker's face showed satisfaction at his son's dominance. Only Samuel Brooks remained perfectly still, watching without reaction. "Your grandfather teach you to be this pathetic?" Logan launched another blitz of strikes. "No wonder you got thrown out of the tournament." Something shifted in Imani's eyes at the mention of her grandfather. When Logan committed to his next punch, overextending slightly, she moved. The counter was brutally efficient. She trapped his extended arm, stepped inside his guard, and executed a perfect hip throw. Logan hit the mat with shocking force, the impact driving air from his lungs. The crowd's cheering cut off like a switch flipped. Logan scrambled to his feet, face flushed with rage and embarrassment. Gone was the performative swagger. Now his eyes held real hatred. He charged forward with a roar, abandoning technique for pure aggression. This time, Imani met him head-on. She blocked his wild haymaker and swept his legs in one fluid motion. Logan crashed down again harder than before. The sound made several spectators wince. "Stay down," Imani said quietly, her first words since the fight began. Logan's response was a snarl as he lurched up again. His next attacks came wild and desperate. Hooks that left him open, kicks thrown off balance. Panic started creeping into his expression as Imani systematically dismantled his offense. She moved with mechanical precision, never wasting motion. Each time Logan attacked, she stripped away his balance and position. The fight transformed into something ugly and grinding. No flash, no theatrics, just relentless pressure. Blood appeared on Logan's lip from a deflected strike. His breathing turned ragged. Sweat poured down his face as he tried to maintain his assault. But each time he rose, Imani put him down again with clinical efficiency. The crowd's enthusiasm died as the one-sided nature of the fight became clear. Phones lowered slightly, their owners uncertain whether they should keep recording. Derek Whitaker's knuckles whitened as he gripped the doorframe. Logan staggered up once more, his legs shaking visibly now. The realization dawned in his eyes. He wasn't in control anymore. He never had been. His careful image of dominance was crumbling with each passing second. "What's wrong?" Imani asked, her voice carrying in the suddenly quiet gym. "I thought this was supposed to be a lesson." Logan's chest heaved as he tried to catch his breath. Gone was the cocky smile, the practiced swagger. His eyes darted around the circle of faces, seeing his carefully constructed reputation dissolving in real time. The mat under their feet was dark with sweat. The music that had been pounding earlier seemed muted and distant now. Every person in the room could feel the momentum shift, the hunter becoming the hunted. Blood dripped from Logan's split lip onto his chest. His shoulders slumped slightly, the first visible sign of fatigue he'd ever shown in this gym. His next breath came as a ragged gasp. The crowd watched in tense silence as Logan struggled to maintain his fighting stance. His legs trembled with exhaustion, his guard dropping lower with each passing moment. The invincible image he'd built over years was cracking apart in minutes. Samuel Brooks hadn't moved from his position against the wall, but a slight nod of approval was visible to those watching closely. Derek Whittaker's face had transformed from smug satisfaction to barely contained alarm. Logan blinked sweat from his eyes, his vision struggling to focus. Each breath seemed to cost him more effort than the last. His customary swagger had evaporated, replaced by the dawning understanding that he'd initiated something he couldn't control. The silence in the gym grew heavier as Logan swayed slightly on his feet. His chest rose and fell in desperate gasps. The confident champion who had started this fight was gone, replaced by someone who finally understood what real danger felt like. The realization was written clearly across his features. This wasn't a tournament match or a training exercise. This was something else entirely, and he had no idea how to handle it. His whole body trembled with fatigue as he faced the opponent he'd underestimated so badly. Sweat darkened the mat in spreading patterns as Logan and Imani circled each other. The crowd pressed closer, their phones casting blue-white glows across tense faces. The air felt thick with anticipation and the metallic tang of fear. Logan's earlier confidence had crumbled into something desperate and dangerous. His chest heaved with each ragged breath, blood from his split lip leaving crimson droplets on his white GI. His eyes darted wildly, searching for any advantage. Imani maintained her measured stance, hands raised in textbook defense. Unlike Logan, her breathing remained controlled, each movement efficient and purposeful. She tracked his increasingly erratic footwork, reading the mounting panic in his posture. "Fight me!" Logan's voice cracked with frustration. He lunged forward with a combination that looked nothing like his usual polished technique. His fists swung wide, telegraphing his intentions. Imani slipped the first punch, blocked the second, and redirected his momentum. Logan stumbled, but caught himself, spinning back with fury written across his features. The crowd shifted uneasily, sensing the shift in energy. "Stop running!" Logan's words came out as a snarl. He charged again, this time leading with a kick that Imani easily avoided. Derek Whittaker's face had lost all color as he watched his son unravel. His hands clenched and unclenched at his sides, but he remained rooted in place, unable or unwilling to intervene. The next exchange happened in a blur. Logan, desperate to regain control, threw a wild haymaker. As Imani moved to counter, he suddenly drove his knee up, not toward her body, but directly at her face. The illegal strike whistled past her ear as she barely managed to evade. A collective gasp rippled through the crowd. Even Logan's most devoted supporters shifted uncomfortably. That hadn't been a competition move or even a street fighting technique. It had been a deliberate attempt to cause serious harm. Something changed in the atmosphere. The entertainment factor evaporated, replaced by a heavy tension that made it hard to breathe. Samuel Brooks straightened slightly against the wall, his expression hardening, but he made no move to interfere. Imani's eyes narrowed almost imperceptibly. Her stance shifted, subtle adjustments that only trained observers would notice. The measured defense that had characterized her movement transformed into something more focused, more final. Logan mistook her slight repositioning for weakness. He rushed forward, telegraphing another illegal strike. This time, Imani didn't evade. She met his charge directly, stepping inside his wild swing. Her hands moved with surgical precision, trapping his extended arm. Before Logan could react, she pivoted sharply, using his own momentum to drive him face first toward the mat. They hit the ground with the impact that made several spectators flinch. Logan tried to roll free, but Imani maintained perfect position. She transitioned smoothly into a crushing arm lock, her grip precise and immovable. "Let go!" Logan's voice rose in panic as he felt the pressure increase. "Someone stop this!" No one moved. His friends, who had cheered so enthusiastically earlier, suddenly found the floor fascinating. Phones continued recording as Logan's bravado crumbled into raw fear. Imani adjusted her grip slightly, increasing the pressure just enough to ensure Logan understood his position. It wasn't rage driving her actions. It was pure technique, applied with mechanical precision. Logan's free hand slapped the mat frantically. I tap! His voice cracked with desperation. Tears mixed with sweat on his face as he realized how completely he'd lost control. Imani held the submission for one deliberate heartbeat longer. Not enough to cause injury, but enough to imprint the moment in Logan's memory. Then she released him and rolled smoothly to her feet. Logan collapsed onto his stomach, body shaking with harsh sobs. The invincible champion was gone, replaced by a teenager facing his first real defeat. His carefully constructed image of dominance lay in shambles around him. The silence in the gym felt absolute. No one spoke. No one moved. The only sounds were Logan's ragged breathing and the soft whir of phone cameras still recording. "It's all on video," someone whispered from the back of the crowd. "Everything. The whole fight." The whisper rippled through the gathered students. Others nodded, confirming they had captured not just the fight, but Logan's taunts, his illegal strikes, his complete unraveling. Derek Whitaker's face drained of what little color remained as he processed the implications. His son's actions, and his own negligence in allowing this unsanctioned event, had been documented from multiple angles. As if underlining the gravity of the situation, distant sirens began to wail outside the gym. Derek's eyes snapped to the doors he had allowed to be locked, trapping everyone inside this unauthorized gathering. The sound seemed to break the spell holding the crowd in place. Students shifted nervously, suddenly aware of their participation in something that had spiraled far beyond a simple challenge match. Logan remained on the mat, his sobs quieter now, but his body still trembling. The perfectly styled hair that had been his trademark hung in sweaty strands across his face. His GI, usually pristine, was soaked with sweat and marked with his own blood from his split lip. The sirens grew louder, their wail cutting through the heavy silence. Derek Whitaker stared at the locked doors with growing dread, understanding that there would be no easy way to explain this situation to the authorities. Blue and red lights strobed through the gym windows, casting eerie shadows across the stunned faces of the gathered students. The wail of sirens died out, replaced by the crunch of boots on gravel and sharp, authoritative knocks on the locked doors. Derek Whitaker fumbled with his keys, hands shaking as he approached the entrance. The metal rattled against the lock before he managed to turn it. The doors swung open, revealing 3 police officers with stern expressions and hands resting near their belts. "What's going on here?" the lead officer demanded, taking in the scene, the crowded gym, the disheveled mat, Logan still crumpled on the ground. Students pressed themselves against the walls, phones still recording despite nervous glances. No one spoke until one of Logan's former friends stepped forward, screen already extended to show the footage. "It was an illegal fight club," he said, voice trembling. "Mr. Whitaker let his son organize it after hours." Derek's face went ash white. "That's not... I didn't... We have it all on video," another student called out. More phones appeared, screens lighting up with damning evidence. The whole thing. And everything before, too. The officers split up, one moving to check on Logan, another speaking into his radio for medical assistance, while the lead officer cornered Derek. "Sir, I'm going to need you to explain why you've got minors locked in here for unsanctioned fighting." Logan's sobs had quieted to hiccups as the medical officer helped him sit up. His face was a mess of tears, sweat, and smeared blood from his split lip. The perfect hair, the confident swagger, the untouchable aura. All of it gone, replaced by a scared teenager facing real consequences for the first time. "It wasn't supposed to," Logan started, then stopped as his father shot him a warning look. But the dam had broken. Students began speaking up, voices overlapping. "He's been bullying people for months. The tournament was rigged. They vandalized her locker. Mr. Hendricks knew about everything." Paul Hendricks, who had been trying to blend into the background, found himself suddenly the focus of multiple stares. He looked between Derek's thunderous expression and the questioning faces of the officers before his shoulders sagged. "I should have said something sooner," he admitted, voice heavy with shame. There was pressure to favor certain students, to look the other way when rules were broken. Logan's behavior, the tournament discrimination, tonight's event. None of it should have happened. The lead officer's expression darkened as she made notes. We'll need statements from everyone. Nobody leaves until we've got contact information. In the corner, students were already sharing videos through every social platform they could access. The footage spread like wildfire. Logan's original humbling tap-out, the tournament sabotage accusations, and now the brutal exposure of his true character in the unsanctioned fight. Within minutes, phones throughout the gym buzzed with notifications as the videos gained traction. Someone muttered that Ironforge's main sponsor had already seen the footage and was pulling their support. Derek Whitaker watched his empire crumbling in real time as his phone exploded with messages from the gym's board members. His face cycled through anger, fear, and finally resignation as he was led aside for questioning. Paramedics arrived to check Logan over, though his injuries were more to his ego than his body. As they helped him onto a stretcher, his eyes locked onto Imani for the first time since the fight ended. There was no anger left, no defiance, just the hollow recognition of someone who finally understood how thoroughly they'd been outmatched. Through it all, Imani stood quietly beside her grandfather, giving her statement when asked but otherwise remaining still. She watched as Logan was escorted out, as Derek was questioned, as students who had once laughed at his jokes now eagerly testified against him. Hours later, after statements were taken and the crowd had dispersed, Imani sat at her kitchen table. Her phone lit up constantly with messages, former victims sharing their stories, students apologizing for their silence, others expressing fear about the gym's future. Samuel walked over and gently took the phone from her hands, powering it off. "That's enough for tonight," he said softly. "This part is finished." Imani looked down at her hands. Bruises were forming across her knuckles, not from the fight itself, but from the precision with which she'd had to control every movement. They were the marks of someone who had chosen restraint, even when it wasn't deserved. "I didn't want to destroy everything," she said quietly. "You didn't," Samuel replied. "You just showed everyone what was already broken. Sometimes that's the harder fight, not throwing the punch, but making people see why it was necessary." Imani nodded slowly, then reached for the small notebook she'd been carrying since that first day. The page with Logan's name was worn from being opened and closed so many times. She studied it for a long moment, remembering each incident, each subtle cruelty, each moment of institutional failure that had led to tonight. The notebook sat open before her, its pages containing a careful record of systematic abuse finally exposed to the light. Each entry represented not just Logan's actions, but the broader failure of those who should have protected their students instead of their reputation. Sunlight streamed through the high windows of the community recreation center, casting long rectangles of warmth across the worn blue mats. The space was simple. No mirrors, no promotional posters, no rack of colored belts marking achievement levels, just clean floors, basic equipment, and room to move. Imani Brooks stood at the front of the class, her posture relaxed but attentive as she watched her students stretch. There were about 15 of them, ranging from 13 to 18 years old. Some wore traditional GIs, others comfortable workout clothes. What united them was their focused silence. No chatter, no phones, no performative energy. "Remember to breathe," Imani said softly, her voice carrying easily in the quiet room. "Focus on your center. Ground yourself before we begin." In the corner, Samuel Brooks sat in a metal folding chair, his weathered hands resting on his cane. His eyes moved carefully over each student, noting their form, their attention, their progress. But he didn't interrupt or correct. This was Imani's space now. "Partner up," Imani instructed. "We'll work on breaking grips today. The goal isn't to overpower, it's to understand leverage, to recognize when someone is off balance, to use their momentum instead of forcing your own." The students paired off naturally, without the jostling or avoiding that had been common at Iron Forge. A tall girl named Maya worked with a shorter boy named David. Neither seemed concerned about size difference or status. They simply focused on the technique. Start slow, Imani demonstrated with a volunteer. Feel how your partner's weight shifts. Notice the spaces they leave open. Don't exploit them yet. Just observe. Samuel's expression softened as he watched his granddaughter teach. Her voice carried the same quiet authority he'd tried to instill, but she'd made it entirely her own. Where he had taught her survival, she was teaching awareness. Where he had shown her power, she was showing them control. The morning light crept across the floor as the class progressed. Students moved through drills with increasing confidence, but there was no showboating, no aggressive testing of limits. When someone struggled, their partner slowed down. When someone succeeded, the victory was acknowledged with focus rather than celebration. Local news coverage of the Iron Forge incident had finally died down. The last headline Samuel had seen was about Logan Whitaker's competition ban being made permanent. The investigation had revealed years of favoritism, covered-up incidents, and systematic bullying. Derek Whitaker had lost his business license. The building stood empty now, its signs removed, its parking lot vacant. But here, in this simple room, something new was growing. Something stronger than hierarchy and showmanship. Remember, Imani said, as she moved between pairs, adjusting grips and stances with gentle precision. Power isn't about domination. It's about understanding yourself, your opponent, the space between action and reaction. A younger student raised her hand. But what if someone really wants to hurt us? Imani nodded, acknowledging the serious question. Then you'll be prepared. Not because you learned flashy moves or earned colored belts, but because you understand fundamentals, because you've trained your awareness, because you know the difference between a threat and a challenge. The class continued its work, the room filled with the soft sounds of movement and controlled breathing. There were no spectators here, no phones recording for social media, no politics masquerading as tradition. Just learning, pure and purposeful. As the session wound down, students helped each other clean the mats and put away equipment. There was no rush to leave, no immediate reaching for phones. The discipline they showed wasn't forced. It had been earned through understanding rather than fear. A young girl named Sarah approached Imani as others gathered their bags. "My friend at school said you're famous," she said hesitantly. "Because of what happened at that other place." Imani's smile was gentle but firm. "No, I'm not famous," she replied. "I was just prepared. And now I'm helping others prepare, too." Sarah nodded, seeming to understand something deeper than the simple answer. As the students filed out, thanking both Imani and Samuel, the morning sun had climbed higher. The light now filled the room completely, erasing shadows, illuminating the simple dignity of the space. Samuel stood slowly, his cane tapping softly on the floor. "Good class," he said quietly. Imani began her final checks of the room, ensuring windows were secured, equipment stored properly, floors clean. The routine was meditative, purposeful. This space might be simpler than Iron Forge had been, but it held something far more valuable than expensive equipment or shiny trophies. She picked up her small gym bag, the same one she'd carried that first day at Iron Forge. But now it felt lighter somehow, unburdened by the need to prove anything to anyone. "Ready?" Samuel asked, holding the door. Outside, the morning air was crisp and clean. The recreation center's brick walls glowed warm in the sunlight. A new group of students was arriving for basketball practice, their energy bright but contained. Imani stepped into the morning light, her shoulders straight but relaxed, her movements easy and confident. There was no need to look back at the room, no need to check for watching eyes or whispered comments. The space would be there tomorrow, and the day after, ready for those who came to learn rather than dominate. She walked forward, matching her pace to her grandfather's, neither hurrying nor hesitating. The lesson was complete, the fight finished, but the teaching, the real teaching, was just beginning. If you enjoyed the story, leave a like to support my channel and subscribe so that you do not miss out on the next one. On the screen, I have picked 2 special stories just for you. Have a wonderful day.